It's Friday, July 25th, 2008, and it's 4:20 somewhere in the world. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville. Produced and distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C., this is your NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about our show at our website, stash.norml.org, and continue the education and conversation on our blog as well. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. The podcasting and blogging technology for the NORML Daily Audio Stash is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. For your professional web design needs, visit redaphid.com. Well, we made it to the weekend once again, dear Stashers, and I'm glad to have you here on the podcast. Joining us as always on Friday is our Celeb Stoner correspondent, Steve Bloom, former High Times editor and webmaster at celebstoner.com. Steve's got us a breakdown of the Summer of Pot movies. There's been a whole bunch of them. You've probably been aware of Harold and Kumar, which was out just a while ago, and, of course, The Whackness, but there's plenty more cannabis comedy coming up on the big silver screen, so check out my interview with Steve and you'll learn all about it. Also, joining us from Joplin, Missouri is the head of Joplin NORML and the campaign director for Sensible Joplin, Kelly Maddie, who's here to tell us about the latest updates on his petition drive to get the voters of Joplin, Missouri to decide whether or not marijuana should be decriminalized within city limits. Fine only, no arrest. Also, we've got a musical break with some more great Toker tunes pulled up by Cannabis Carry. And I've got a special Toker tune remix for you, an additional tune here for the stash, which is a remix of George W. Bush singing the classic Melly Mel Grandmaster Flash song, White Lines. Yeah, I know it's a cocaine song, but it's so funny that you really need to hear it. And, of course, all our regular hemp headlines and the continuation of our Pass the Stash contest, where you could win a copy of the DVD, a.k.a. Tommy Chong, the documentary about Tommy's 9-month imprisonment for selling glass on the internet. All right, we got plenty of stuff to get to, so load up the 4-footer and sit back and relax, because it's time for your NORML Daily Audio Stash. Now it's time to take a look at the latest stories about marijuana from news organizations across America and around the world in our NORML Daily Audio Stash, Hemp Headlines. ABC's 2020 tonight. Are pot users criminals? The tragic case of Rachel Hoffman. From ABC News. After being caught twice with a baggie of marijuana, 23-year-old Rachel Hoffman was reportedly told by police in Tallahassee, Florida, that she would go to prison for 4 years unless she became an undercover informant. Parents say police used their daughter as bait to catch drug dealers. The young woman, a recent graduate of Florida State University, was murdered during a botched sting operation 2 months ago. Her case will be profiled tonight, Friday, on ABC's 2020 News Magazine, which you can catch at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on your local ABC affiliate. Now, we've been following the story of Rachel Hoffman since it broke, and it just highlights how the prohibition of marijuana is the harmful part of marijuana. Texas teen who gave pot to toddlers gets 8 years. From the Dallas Morning News. A Watauga man who was caught on video laughing as his 2- and 4-year-old nephews smoked marijuana last year pleaded guilty to charges in the case Thursday and was sentenced to 8 years in prison, according to the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office. Demetrius McCoy, 18, pleaded guilty in 2 cases of injury to a child causing bodily injury for laughing and poking fun at the boys as they smoked inside a home. As part of the plea deal, Mr. McCoy agreed to testify against his friend and co-defendant, Vanswan Pulte, 19, who was also seen on the video. The shocking tape gained national attention after Fort Worth police recovered it as they executed a search warrant at a home in the 6,000 block of Hickory Hill Road in Watauga as part of a burglary investigation. Mr. McCoy and Mr. Pulte lived at the home along with the children and their mother. Mr. Pulte faces 2 cases of injury to a child causing bodily injury and 3 burglary charges in a case scheduled to go to trial next month. He remains in the Tarrant County Jail. I'm sorry, this is going to make me sound really awful, and please don't ever think that I would endorse or approve of forcing toddlers to smoke marijuana. But could someone please show me the bodily injury? Because there is no toxicity to the marijuana, there is no way that the toddlers were poisoned. There is no lasting physical or mental damage from occasional light marijuana use. Now, certainly the toddlers were high, but is that a bodily injury? Something that makes them giggle, eat too much, and fall asleep? I guess under the law it is, but I'm a bit dismayed at the idea that assaulting a child with pot smoke is as serious as assaulting a child with physical violence. Now we're putting someone who is barely not a child himself, an 18-year-old, into felony university, where he'll emerge at age 26, or younger with parole, with an advanced degree in criminality. There are no good answers in this case, because I do want to see people punished for irresponsible use of marijuana, and I do oppose getting anyone high against their will, and I do oppose the use of marijuana by children in all but the most severe medical instances. But 8 years just seems too harsh to me. South Australia bans hydroponic equipment in cannabis crackdown. From Adelaide Now. The state government has stepped up its war on hydroponic cannabis, making it illegal to possess the lamps and reflectors used to produce crops. Equipment used in clandestine drug laboratories also will be targeted by new laws aimed at stopping illegal drug manufacturing within South Australia. The prohibited equipment will include high-intensity lamps, reflectors, and carbon filters used for hydroponic cannabis crops. Laboratory equipment such as condensers, evaporators, heating tools, stirrers, funnels, flasks, and filters also will be illegal to possess, unless the owners can provide a legitimate reason for possessing them. Attorney General Michael Atkinson today announced that anyone found with the equipment who could not provide a lawful reason could face fines of up to $10,000 or 2 years in jail. But how do you enforce a law like this? Is it now illegal to sell such items? The Attorney General has said that people could have grow equipment if they could prove they were using it for legitimate purposes. So, how do I prove to the shopkeeper that I really do grow tomatoes? What form do I fill out to prove my legitimate reason for owning lab equipment? Maybe I'm an inventor. Maybe chemistry is my hobby. And when it does get more difficult to get hydroponic grow equipment, you'll have created a lucrative black market in those goods as well. Malibu City Council to consider rival pot ordinances on Monday. From the Malibu Times. The City Council on Monday will be presented with 2 rival ordinance proposals, one to allow medical marijuana dispensaries and the other to ban them. Current city law does not address the issue. The Planning Commission, by a vote of 3-2 last month, recommended the council allow up to 3 dispensaries within city limits. There are 2 medical marijuana facilities operating in Malibu, Green Angel and PCH Collective. If the council votes in favor of allowing the dispensaries, those 2 facilities could apply for conditional use permits to stay in business, and others could apply to be the 3rd dispensary within Malibu. The proposal to legalize the businesses contains several restrictions, including the requirement for a security guard patrolling as much as a 2-block radius around the business. The city manager would decide on the range. The marijuana cannot be used on site. Only qualified patients with doctor's recommendations receive the marijuana, and the dispensaries cannot be located within a 500-foot radius of a school, daycare, religious facility, playground, or park.
Stupid Stoner Stories.
As a public service, NORML reminds you that smoking marijuana will not make one stupid. However, some stupid people do smoke marijuana. Don't be one of those stoners that make the rest of us look bad. Learn your lesson from today's
Stupid Stoner Story.
A Fresno man is in custody today after casino security videotaped him placing a large amount of marijuana on a blackjack table, apparently as his bet. Video shows the man then reclaiming the bag of weed, but then taking just a few buds and placing those out as his bet. Even as casino security scooped up the contraband, the man seemed unfazed because he has ordered a card on the internet that he believes gives him the right to bet weed.
Seriously, folks, if you don't believe me on this one, you've got to check out the Stash blog at stash.normal.org. I've got the video of this guy placing weed as a bet at a blackjack table. Big thanks to Omar Figueroa for the tip on this one. Now it's time to play Pass the Stash, where you can win cool prizes from NORML. Hey Stashers, time for a brand new Pass the Stash contest. This one's going to run all the way through the end of July, so you've got till July 31st to get your entries in to stash@normal.org. Here's the contest. It's inspired by a conversation with a friend of mine, Scott, from Herb Age Designs. Check them out at herbagedesigns.com. And we were talking about what's the smallest amount you've ever heard of anyone being busted for marijuana, the smallest amount in possession. And Scott had quite a surprising answer. I'm not going to give it away yet because I want you guys to enter. So the person who can prove to me that they were busted with the smallest amount of marijuana in grams or less than a gram, just send me an email at stash@normal.org and you could win a copy of the DVD, aka Tommy Chong, the Josh Gilbert documentary that chronicles Tommy Chong's 9 months in prison that he served for selling bongs on the internet. If yours is the entry with the smallest amount and you can prove it by July 31st, you'll win the DVD. We'll just mail it right out to you. You can remain anonymous and you must be 18 or over to play. And thanks for playing Pass the Stash.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 12 states today, and THCF has medical clinics in 6 of those states. Our physicians help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms as in multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help them obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, Colorado, Nevada, Hawaii, and California. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at www.hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
It's Friday, and that means it's time to get all the latest celebrity stoner news from the webmaster of celebstoner.com and former High Times editor, Steve Bloom. Welcome back to the Stash.
Hey, Russ, how are you?
I'm doing great. How's everything in New York?
Everything's fine. We had a huge heat wave that finally broke a few days ago, so everything's sort of back to normal.
Well, that's good to hear. Now, as we go out to the website at celebstoner.com, looks like this is the season for weed movies. I mean, we've talked about the Whackness before, but the new Seth Rogen movie's coming out.
Right. There's a movie called Pineapple Express coming out on August 6th, and it's a movie starring Seth Rogen and James Franco, two guys who were first paired up in Freaks and Geeks, the TV show that Judd Apatow created. Judd Apatow is sort of like the mastermind behind all of these sort of movies that Rogen has been involved in, going back to Knocked Up and Superbad, these guys have sort of taken over comedy in Hollywood to some degree. With maybe Will Ferrell and Ben Stiller and a few other people put out comedies, but Apatow with Rogen, are pretty much the hottest commodities on out in Hollywood right now, or Hollyweed, and so the much-awaited Pineapple Express, which I have seen, and basically it's similar to Knocked Up in the sense that the early part of the movie is very sort of pro-stoner, and the later part of the movie is maybe a little less stoner, as the movie evolves or devolves into an action-adventure. Basically, Rogen is a processor, right? And he's a pot smoker. In the first scene of the movie, he's driving along in his car, listening to talk radio, and having kind of like a monologue with himself about why marijuana should be legal. And then he heads over to his dealer's house, who's played by James Franco, and they smoke the Pineapple Express, the strain, which Franco, lauds as the best, that you're ever going to smoke. And it's just a lot of exaggerated kind of dialogue between dealer and purchaser. And they're not really friends at all, and I think they're trying to set up the idea that the dealer sometimes is a little overbearing and you just want to come and go, but the dealer kind of is maybe lacking friends and, just wants to talk nonstop.
I think we all know that story.
So they sit around and have this long kind of smoke out, which is very funny. And then while Rogen is doing one of his jobs, he's sort of sitting outside a building waiting for somebody, I think, to come out on a house. He sees a murder happen. And so I won't really give away too much more of the movie other than that kind of sets up kind of a chase movie. It gets away from the pot smoking theme of the movie, and it kind of brings up the discussion that I read in this interview with Rogen in GQ in the current issue. That's a cover story. It's very good, and there's this discussion about marijuana in the story where Judd Apatow, the producer of the movie, he basically describes the movie as an anti-pot movie, and Rogen describes the movie as a pro-pot movie, and he says that's kind of the discussion they've been having for the last 6 years, that, what Rogen sees as pro, Apatow sees as anti, and I guess that's why their movies come out the way they do so far, where generally it's not overly favorable towards marijuana. If you look at Knocked Up, my view of Knocked Up was that the early parts of the movie kind of represented, Rogen's stoner life, and the later parts of the movie represent him getting away from the stoner life so he could sort of have a relationship with Katherine Heigl's character. Mm-hmm. And it seems to be similar in this movie. So there's this sort of dynamic that goes on between these two guys, and you'll see it through this movie. But it's a fun movie, and it's certainly going to probably do very well and get a lot of attention upon its release.
Oh yeah, we hope so. And there's a movie here that's just premiered out here. It's out here in Portland where I'm at. I don't know if it's nationwide yet. A movie called Garden Party.
Yeah, Garden Party it's a sort of a limited release. It's in New York, L.A., Seattle, and Portland right now, and it's sort of a much smaller movie. I would consider it more of a B kind of movie with a lot of B actors, but it's a young director named Jason Freeland who has put together a cast to sort of focus on sort of the underbelly of Los Angeles, life in L.A. these days, young people's opportunities, what comes to them, and sort of the transient nature of the life in L.A. of people coming from, the East and settling in L.A. and kind of meeting up with friends and then trying to make a living. And they kind of like focus in on, some of the lesser opportunities, such as, kind of soft porn where you'll go and, reveal your body a little bit for a photographer and make a couple of dollars. And the drugs in the movie is strictly marijuana. And what's interesting is the main character is a realtor, but she was formerly a topless dancer, and the actress's name is Vanessa Shaw, and she has a grow room that one of her staffers runs for her, and she's a big pot smoker in the movie, and she provides for her clients or her prospective clients or someone she's trying to sell property to, and she sends them sort of like say a prospectus or documents on it. She'll add into the bag, like a joint or two, and So it's a fun little element that's very much L.A., and then there's a rock kind of element to the story. One of the characters, a young guy who just, auditions for a band and kind of rises into the L.A. music scene, and there's a pretty funny character, like a talent scout who discovers him and gets him signed. It's a small movie. It's not like doesn't have the big aspirations in a movie like other classic stoner movies released this year. It's closer to the whackness than it would be to the Pineapple Express or Harold and Kumar. It's a little smaller movie, but it's definitely worth checking out.
Sure. And speaking of the whackness, I know that's been in release for a while now. Has it gotten wider release, and what have we heard from its sales?
Release. I think August 1st it really spreads out a little bit. They decided to do the limited release approach. A bigger company has put out the whackness, Sony Pictures Classics. But they're rolling it out in a sort of a slower fashion. It's gotten a lot of reviews and somewhat mixed reviews. It seems that most of the critics don't love the whackness, but the tendency is, I think most movies that have a dominant marijuana theme, oftentimes the critics don't love it. But the opening scene of the movie is kind of a shocker, because that's the scene where Ben Kingsley is having a session, a therapy session with Josh Peck's character, and after the session's over, Josh pays him off with weed, and just says, here's, whatever, how much does it cost, and he just basically puts down a bag, and then Kingsley just digs right into the bag, pulls out a bong, fills up the bowl, and just lights up right then and there. As it turns out, what I've read, that Kingsley is not a pot smoker, didn't even know how to smoke a bong, had to learn how to do it on set. But it's just a great sight to watch, and this great actor, of course, is known for his role in Gandhi and a lot of other great roles, smoking in the movie. And his character's just a fun character. He's a little bit lost. He's having a bit like life crisis. He's kind of almost like a Pacino, larger-than-life New York character.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it's a great movie. And one more that's coming up on the horizon, we don't know if it's necessarily a pop movie, but there's certainly a lot of celeb stoners in it.
Well, there's Surfer Dude, and this is starring Matthew McConaughey as the title character. What's really fun about the movie is that it features three of our top celeb stoners, McConaughey, Woody Harrelson, and Willie Nelson. Now, from what I've seen, the trailer is up on the website now. You can check it out. McConaughey is kind of like channeling Spicoli in this movie. He's basically, all these years later, from 1982, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Sean Penn's classic Jeff Spicoli, Surfer Dude character. I really want the waves, man. Taste the waves, whatever is like that, the classic line. McConaughey's sort of playing this guy, and it's kind of odd because Spicoli was the kid and kind of could get away with it. But McConaughey's, an adult guy, very famous as an actor at this point. He's not a young guy coming up that nobody knows. Yet he's playing this Surfer Dude character, with all the inflections of the language of this is bogus and blah, blah, blah. So it's a little bit of a step back from McConaughey, away from his more higher profile, at least a little more serious roles that he's had over the years. And then Woody, from what I can see in the trailer, is his manager. And he definitely plays the stoner guy. There's no question. I mean, he's just, all his inflections, mannerisms, speaking, look, everything looks like, hey, Woody's, playing a character that he can very much relate to. And then Willie is Farmer Bob, and there's one scene in the trailer where he passes McConaughey, Surfer Dude character, a bag, a paper bag, and he says, here's for you, and he says, it's all natural, and then McConaughey makes some sort of, and thinks that, and it's pretty obviously a little bag of weed that's being transferred from Willie to McConaughey's character. So it looks like a lot of fun. We'll see. It's coming out in September. I would guess that there's a little bit of pot smoking going on in the movie.
Well, I would guess at least in the backstage trailers. So
well, that was for sure. They're probably hotboxing like crazy throughout the whole movie. But it looks like a fun one. So yeah, it kind of it continues a big year with a trend towards stoner movies. Though I have to say this has been happening pretty consistently, since around 2000 or so, when we started doing the Stony Awards and started monitoring marijuana in the movies a little bit more because it was happening more and more. And this might be, by the end of the year, this might be the biggest year for stoner movies when you look at the number of movies that come out and the box office receipts that come for these movies to see if Pineapple Express does as well as anticipated. It could, push it into maybe, the biggest year for stoner movies. We'll see.
Well, it is the summer of stoner movies, and for all the latest updates, you can check out celebstoner.com. Also, don't forget to pick up your copy of Pot Culture, the A to Z Guide to Stoner Language and Life. And if you don't know how to get it, the advertisement is coming up right after this interview. So, Steve, thanks for joining us again here on the Daily Audio Stash.
Ross, my pleasure.
Just say no.
No matter what you call it, it's a huge part of popular culture.
Where'd you learn that, Cheech? Drug school.
You don't need weed school. You just need a copy of the new book, Pot Culture, the A to Z Guide to Stoner Language and Life.
Hey, this is great, man.
Even if you never smoked marijuana.
I never used marijuana. Sorry.
Don't think you smoked marijuana.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two and didn't inhale.
Or you used to smoke marijuana.
I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Pot Culture by former High Times editor Steve Bloom and Shirley Halperin will answer every question you ever had about marijuana culture.
Has that marijuana made it back up here yet?
Check out Pot Culture, the A to Z Guide to Stoner Language and Life at Amazon.com or visit potculturebook.com today.
Too bad, man. I just stopped smoking yesterday.
Here at the NORML Daily Audio Stash, we work hard to change our nation's marijuana laws through education and discussion. But we also take time to relax and unwind with an eclectic mix of pod-safe music from many independent artists. We look for music that speaks to the growing truth about cannabis, or music that speaks to broader themes of freedom, liberty, social justice, equality, and protest. To find out more about the artists and download the music you hear on this podcast, just log on to stash.normal.org. And if you'd like to get your music heard by the online cannabis community, just send us an email at stash@normal.org. Happy Friday, Stashers. Today we get a Righteous Toker tune from Nice Peter. That's a guy, not a compliment to a porn star. And his instant classic, Smoke That Weed. A comedian with musical chops, Pete Shukoff is the lead singer and guitarist. Drummer Kristen Register, along with Pete, make up this two-piece band from Chicago. Shukoff was trained in improv at the Improv Olympic in Chicago, and his comedy collides with rock and roll like a quickie marriage in Vegas. Visit the Nice Peter website at nicepeter.com to enjoy more of their weedy comedy. Hey, look at the clock. It's 4:19. You got a minute? Enjoy today's musical break, smoke that weed, and have a great weekend. You can find more about Nice Peter at our website, stash.normal.org, where you can also get an MP3 download of this song. It's Nice Peter with Smoke That Weed.
Smoke that weed all day long, come on. See that green burning red, smoke that shit till you drop down dead, come on. Cause the day was hard and your work was long, and you need a break from all that's wrong. You better look at the clock cause it's 4:19, time to reach in that pocket for your bag of green and smoke that weed, smoke that weed. Smoke that weed, smoke that weed. It's grass and it's good and it is your friend. Just make sure you take out them seeds and stems, come on. So you're worried they might check your piss. I say quit that fucking job and hit this, come on. Cause your dog got hit by a pickup truck and you got your girlfriend knocked up. You better look at the clock cause it's 4:19, time to reach in that pocket for your bag of green and smoke that weed, smoke that weed, smoke that weed, smoke that weed. It's just, when I get high, I feel so awesome. Somebody order a pizza now, come on. Somebody order a pizza now, come on. Somebody order a pizza and smoke that weed. 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 Smoke, 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 weed. Smoke, smoke, smoke. Smoke, 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 weed. Smoke that weed, motherfucker.
Hi, this is Alan St. Pierre, Executive Director of NORML. We are the oldest, largest, and best-known marijuana law reform organization in America, and it's all because of your support. Take some time to join NORML at www.norml.org. Your membership supports this podcast, our websites, our policy research and analysis, and our annual conferences. Changing marijuana laws is a grassroots effort, and it starts with you, the stakeholder. Join NORML today and add your voice to the millions of cannabis consumers who demand equality with our beer-drinking friends.
Everybody, we've got an update on a story that we've been following down in Joplin, Missouri, and we're joined once again by Kelly Maddie, who is the campaign director of Sensible Joplin and the executive director of Joplin NORML. And Kelly, welcome back to the Stash.
Hey, thank you for having me.
When we last spoke with you, you were working to gather signatures for a petition drive in the city of Joplin. Let's remind our listeners what that petition drive was seeking to attain.
What it would do is place a decriminalization measure at the local level of the city of Joplin on the ballot in November 2008 that would effectively end all marijuana arrests for adults in the city of Joplin for less than 35 grams and replace it with a fine-only system of $250 as well as no criminal record. And that would be up for the vote for the people if we did gather enough in November 2008.
And so you recently passed the deadline of when you needed to turn in the signatures, and you've turned in the signatures. How's that turned out for you?
Well, we got our results back. For the first leg of the signatures, we turned in what they found were 54 eligible signatures, and out of those, 3,623 signatures were valid. We needed 4,656, so we're right at 1,000 behind of what we need. The good thing about this is we do have some time to get another round of signatures. We have 10 days starting August 5th through August 15th where we can gather signatures and submit them to the city on the 15th and hopefully make up the deficit that of 1,000 signatures that we have to by then.
So you kind of get a second chance. Is this just a Joplin thing, or is this all throughout the state of Missouri?
As far as the initiative process?
Yeah, when you get this second chance to go get more signatures.
I think that there is a portion of the state code that is like that. Ours differs, I think, slightly on just the duration of the period you can do it for, because on statewide they're dealing with quite a few more signatures than we have to. So I think the duration's a little smaller for Joplin, but yeah, the same principle exists on the state level too here.
So from the 5th through the 15th, how many valid signatures are you trying to gather?
1,000. The exact number is 1,033. We have a signature surge day on August 9th. That'll be at Par Hill Park in Central, right in smack dab in the middle of Joplin, Missouri, that we're going to be inviting people out for free food and drinks, socializing with group members, and of course there to sign the petition, try to increase our numbers and give a firm physical point where somebody that may not know where to sign or where to locate one of us, they can go there, and we'll be publicizing that throughout the media as well as on the streets with promotional flyers and stuff. So on August 9th from 12 to 8, we'll be there as a place for people in Joplin to come sign the petition. On top of that, we're also going to be doing door-to-door canvassing with recent voter registration lists, so that way we can make sure our validity rate is up and over of what it was from our previous numbers. Because a lot of the previous canvassing dealt with high traffic foot locations where you couldn't verify that person was indeed a voter. But when we're going to people's houses with these lists, hopefully that'll put our validity rate up a little bit on the signatures we do gather that we turn in on August 15th.
So those are your two obstacles, basically, is number one, they have to be a resident of Joplin, and number two, they have to be a registered voter.
Correct.
Okay. Now, when you were going around collecting these signatures, do you have any organized opposition to this idea in Joplin?
No organized, and far from it. Actually, we have a small population, I think, of people that haven't ever had to deal with this issue, other than what they hear from their mom and dad, or what's been passed down through the generations as far as the propaganda that regards the marijuana. So this small vocal opposition are people that say off-the-cuff comments at us, like, they want us to burn in hell, and they think we should be taken out behind the police station and shot, and that would be a more efficient way to conduct law enforcement. I mean, we get all kinds of crazy comments that totally uncalled for when, all we're asking is to open up a discussion on the issue and put it on the ballot and let voters for themselves decide, So, for them, we let them know, nicely that they can sign and go vote no if they choose to. But this is all that it does is open that discussion for people here in Joplin that haven't ever had to consider that before.
So aside from the odd comment from the fringe there, have the people of Joplin been pretty accepting of this signature drive?
All in all, yeah. I mean, the city of Joplin, the officials of the city of Joplin have been great, far better than I would have ever expected. And I almost shame myself for even having a preconceived notion of how they would respond. But they've been great, very helpful as far as getting us in figures that we need. So they've been real good about that. So
there hasn't been any sort of outcry from the law enforcement community in Joplin about this?
Far from it. Actually, this is kind of a nice caveat to this whole thing with Joplin, Missouri. We just got a police chief last year, right before the launch of the initiative, from Oregon. He was a police chief in Oregon for 20-some-odd years, and was Chief Lane Roberts. And then the first interview he ever gave about the initiative, right after our press conference, in the Joplin Globe, our main newspaper here, he stated that he smoked marijuana back in the Army. The only thing he saw wrong with it was the fact that he felt criminal since it was a criminal offense. He had a brother that was a cancer patient and spoke in our main newspaper about how his brother would have donated to medical cannabis research far before he would ever donate to the major cancer research foundations. And I mean, he said whatever the will of the people was, he would make sure his department enforced that as strong as possible. So, I mean, in opposition to or in contrast to a lot of what people might believe about the heart of the Midwest, it really surprised us, and it was a pleasant surprise to have after the day of us announcing that. So.
Yeah, that is great. Now, your campaign, has this been an all-volunteer campaign?
Yeah, it has, and I mean, usually with any volunteer effort, it's a small amount of people. We had about 5 hardcore canvassers that got the bulk of the signatures that we turned in on July 10th. There was, up to 15 or 20 others that submitted a petition or two, and that help was definitely is great to have. But all in all, it was a very small volunteer effort, and we're really proud of what we've done with the resources that we've had. So.
Well, let's get all the people there in Joplin, Missouri, motivated and educated to get out there for your surge of signatures between August 5th and 15th. How about we let them know the websites where they can get more information?
If you go to www.sensiblejoplin.org, we've just put up a new page that you can click and link to the volunteer form, and it would go straight to us. And it also has information on the rally we're holding on August 9th. They can also check us out on myspace.com/sensiblejoplin and joplin-normal.org.
Well, that's great resources for everyone to get involved. And if you haven't signed the petition, get down there to the park and sign it. Kelly Maddie is the executive director of, let's try this again. Kelly Maddie is the executive director of Joplin NORML and the campaign director for Sensible Joplin. And they're trying to get marijuana decriminalized in the city of Joplin, Missouri. Thanks for all the work you guys are doing, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much for having us, Russ.
Main, bass, shooter, blow. Get higher, baby. Get higher, baby. Get higher, baby. You don't have to come down. Freebase. White lines, vision, dreams, and passion going through my mind. And all the while I think of you. Pipelines, a very strange reaction for us to unwind. The more I see, the more I do. Something of a phenomenon telling your body to come along. Because white lines blow away. White line highway. All your friends, they can go my way. Pay your soul, sell your soul. Pound for pound costs more than gold. The longer you stay, the more you pay. White lines go a long way. Either up your nose or to your vein. With nothing to gain except killing your brain. A million magic crystals, painted pure and white, in multi-million dollars. Almost overnight, some asshole took a picture of Kate Moss doing lines. Now she's being victimized for imaginary crimes. Rock, pain, shooter, blow, pain, bass, rock, blow. Get higher, baby. Get higher, baby. Get higher, baby. You don't ever come down. Freebase.
Thank you for downloading the NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. We are produced by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. Our executive producer is Alan St. Pierre. Our deputy director is Paul Armentano. Our webmaster is Brian Judy. And web production is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. As always, you can catch up on the latest information about marijuana at www.norml.org. And you can interact and download from our Audio Stash blog at stash.norml.org. For everyone here at NORML, I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, hoping all your harvests are bountiful and your encounters with law enforcement are non-existent. We leave you today with another cannabis quote, this one from John F. Kennedy, the former president. Quote, "For the great enemy of truth is very often not the lie, deliberate, contrived, and dishonest, but the myth, persistent, persuasive, and unrealistic. Too often we hold fast to the cliches of our forebears. We subject all facts to a prefabricated set of interpretations. We enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought." End quote. It's so true because there's so much about the war on marijuana these days that's really just a holdover from the culture wars of the 1960s. If marijuana appeared on the planet today with absolutely no history and no stereotypes, people would be hailing it as a wonder drug. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast. We'll be back next week with more news and interviews that you can use for the cannabis community. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.